Good morning, Austin. How's it going?
Going great. Glad to have you here. When I sent you this topic yesterday, I don't have the text message pulled up, but I mean, it took you a little while to respond, but then you said, "Oh my God," or like some kind of WTF kind of response to this topic. When Megan Kelly said yesterday on her show that if her husband was going to cheat on her, that she would rather have him cheat on her physically than emotionally. Well, when I asked my wife Stephanie about that question, she did not have the exact same response as Megan Kelly did. What was your response to this, Laura?
Yeah, you're playing with fire there, Austin. I'll actually say that the interview prep for this interview was really healthy for my marriage because um, Megan Kelly was talking about in the context of it's her. How do you pronounce it? Giselle and Tom Brady getting a divorce, and so they were speculating that Tom Brady had there was infidelity going on, and so that was the context of the interview. And so I was telling Jace about my husband Jace about this and prep for this interview, and he reassured me several times before this morning that I was hotter than Giselle and that all of his emotional needs are met and that there's nothing to worry about. So thank you for that. Um, but I wonder if my response is similar to Stephanie's because I was thinking about the question like if I had to choose, like obviously the ideal is that there's no cheating happening, but if I had to pick, the emotional infidelity is bad, but not for the same reason that this person in the interview with Megan Kelly was suggesting. Like if my husband, I found out my husband was crying with another woman, I would just be embarrassed for myself that I was married to such a guy that would have to go and get his emotional needs met and go cry with another woman.
But I
Like
mean,
that's
here's
just sad for me.
okay, yeah, well, yes. However, let me just interject on that and say, if he feels the need to cry in with another woman, he doesn't feel comfortable with that. Doing that in front of you, but, there that indicates that there is a serious problem there, because as a man, it's difficult enough to release your emotions at all. You certainly don't want to do that publicly because of the backlash. I was just talking to my buddy Ian Smith about how men sort of police masculinity, but I mean, women police masculinity too in displaying their, like, just like you did, kind of their disgust with men showing their emotions in a way, right?
Yeah, and that's a fair point. Um, so also if he feels like and you're right. So in agreement, like if he feels like he can't cry in front of me, we obviously have problems in our marriage. But if he cheats on me in terms out plus like the sexual the intimacy, then that means and if we're talking about like base instinct here, that means that he's rejected my sexual appeal, which means that he's rejected his desire to what have children with me. Like that's what this all is about at the end of the day. That's
Yes.
fundamental.
Okay, sure. It is to an extent, but I think here's the problem, and I know some men will disagree with me, but I think I can safely say in general that it is possible for men to have a physical entanglement that doesn't involve any kind of an emotional attachment. And again, some guy, disagreed with me this morning and, said the opposite, that, he doesn't think it's possible to have a physical attachment without an emotional attachment. I'm telling you, it absolutely is possible. I mean, I'm not
I don't
trying to.
think we're in a disagreement there for men. For
Yeah,
women, it's different. Yeah.
are you sure? I mean, maybe for the vast majority of women, but I mean, I have known women who have met a man and within 5 minutes or less, they're having sex with him, in a closet or in a bedroom or something like that at a party, and they literally just met them, Laura. And y- so. I mean, I'm not saying that all women necessarily are like that, but I mean, a lot of women are like that, Laura.
Do you think they're doing that because they need to get off, or do you think that they're doing it because they want like the validation?
Well, what's
I
wrong
think
with?
the latter.
Well, maybe both, but I mean, even if they want the validation, that doesn't require any kind of an emotional attachment for you and the other person, right? It's just like,
I'm
oh, you're just
saying,
validating. I'm hot. I think I'm hot. I'm hot. He thinks I'm hot, and yeah, I'm gonna get off. But like, really, this is about me feeling good about the fact that the hottest guy at this party wants me.
but that's an intrinsic value for a woman to be hot. It means that she's secure, she's safe. I've got some guy who's attracted to me. He's going to protect me and the kin, and we're going to be good to go through the night. We're going to wake up and we're going to be safe. So that's the kind of validation I'm talking about.
Okay, so all right, if you're just tuning in, we're speaking to Liberty Laura about one of the most uncomfortable topics we've ever breached on the Wake Up America show.
Oh, I like
It's a
it.
good one. You can text the show at 573-319-1586. We'd love to hear from you on this one. And the question is would you prefer, if your spouse is going to cheat, I know you don't want them to cheat, but if they were going to cheat, would you prefer that it was a physical cheating or an emotional cheating? Now, when it comes to the emotional cheating thing, I mean, it's funny to think about your man like crying with another woman, but I mean, that's kind of like, the parody of that kind of a thing. What we're really talking about here is like, when we say intimacy, I know people think sex, but I mean, like, there are emotional relationships that I have had with women that never entered into the physical realm, that were, unparalleled depth of emotions and complications and complexities. I don't have any of those relationships now, but I can say that, if I did have that kind of a relationship with a woman now, I would completely understand why a woman would feel more threatened by that than a physical relationship, because like, the physical is visceral, so you have like that very strong emotional reaction to it. But I think I absolutely understand what Megan Kelly is talking about. Maybe a lot of men don't, aren't able to sort of communicate the complexities of the relationships they have with women as much as women are more, vocal and can communicate that. But I think I agree with Megan that that is definitely a much bigger threat to a marriage than just some physical relationship, even if it, gives you that kind of a visceral reaction. I mean, can you see why though?
Yes, and in the way that I see this, in the context that I see this now, maybe it's my life stage. A lot of my friends are getting married. I'm recently married. This isn't an intimate relationship, but I see this strain happen with husbands, especially new husbands, and their moms. If they have a really good relationship with their mother, there becomes this strain during the leave and cleave process that should take place when a man gets married, and he should leave and he should cleave from his parents, his primary family, to some degree, in a healthy way. But there's usually a loyalty test. It often comes up around kids or wedding planning, if not, before then. And the son, the husband, has to decide whose opinion he values more. Is it his mom's opinion or is it his wife's opinion? And that's a big conflict,
Oh yeah.
because, and I'm a mom to son, so I'm like speaking and like, don't be the crazy mother-in-law in the future. Don't be the crazy mother-in-law in the future. But I can see both sides about how that was hard. My husband and I, we had to set boundaries in place. Be like, listen, when we're sitting down for dinner, just tell your mom we'll call her back. Love your mom. I got super lucky in the mother-in-law roulette.
Hmm.
I have to call her back. She's like a mother to me now, but still there has to be very clear priorities. And we even talked about this in premarital counseling. Like, this is a recurring issue. And that's obviously not a sexual relationship. It's an emotional one. So yes, I can see how there's tension there.
See, I mean, maybe it's just because I'm a different kind. I'm not like your normal, average guy in the way that I think about things and the way I approach my relationships. I'm much more of kind of like an open heart, heart on my sleeve type of a guy. Chris Morrill over in the Facebook live stream says spilling guts is bad, spilling bodily fluids is worse. Just my 2 cents. See, I just don't see it that way because of, the sort of the value that I place on a relationship with a woman. And when I have this relationship, it is so intense and emotional to me. I wouldn't say spiritual because I don't look at things that way, but to me, the emotional relationship that I have with a woman is so much bigger and so much more important than sex. And a lot of people disagree. Over on the YouTube channel this morning, the Landlord Harassment Channel, that's a funny name, says there's no such thing as emotional cheating. That's a term coined by the left. I totally disagree. What do you think? You can
I
emotionally
disagree.
cheat, right? Yeah. What would you
So let me
consider
tell a
emotional
story.
cheating? Yeah, go ahead. Tell your story.
Let me tell a story. This is good background. Okay. One of the first dates that I went on with my husband, if you can call it that, before we were married, uh, he made me, I was saying the same thing that you're saying. What are you talking about? Very like pick me vibes. I'm a guy's girl. I've had relationship with men my whole life that have been platonic. There's been nothing happening. And he goes, yeah, okay, Laura, that's for you, but for them it's different. And so one of our first dates, he drug me to his bachelor pad in not drug me at, but drag me to his bachelor pad, to be very clear, um, in Virginia, and we watched Harry Met Sally. I had never seen that movie. That was one of our very first dates. We did not sit on the same couch. I was mad to be even watching the whole thing. But the theme here is that I eventually married my husband because he like calls me out on my BS when I'm wrong. But so he made me watch Harry Met Sally, and I'll never forget this because I had never considered this before. And when we turned the movie off, he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Oh my God, everything's a lie." Like my relationship with men that I had had previously, like you discussed, most of them generally, I thought were just these like platonic friendships. But then I think about it and I'm like, oh, maybe there was something else going on their end, not mine. I just think you run the risk. And when you're married, I don't think it's worth running that risk. You run the risk of, and it's not a guarantee, but if you have these deep emotional relationships with women, people of the opposite sex, um, you run the risk that you'll offend your wife. She's primary. You run the risk that you're going to get in some entanglement with the other party that's not your wife. You run the risk that it'll change for you.
One of the challenges, now that I've been married, our first anniversary is coming up here just the end of this month. One of the things that the challenges that I have is I've always had really good, healthy relationships with women, not in like a guys girl kind of a way, but I mean, like for example,
Yes.
like you and I have had a healthy friendship, right? And I have a lot of people in my life that are kind of like you, where it's like they're women, but we've never dated. It's always been platonic, but it's a very complex and an interesting and engaging relationship. And so now that I'm married, I find myself in a situation where I have to be careful about that. And I don't even, and because I don't know what really the boundaries are for what could be considered cheating, because like if I'm having a direct message, a DM chat with someone like yourself, that we have this kind of like we have inside jokes and we have all this like banter and things like that. Yeah, I have that with my wife, but I mean, like every relationship is different. And now I guess I ask myself, like, how do you know when you're emotionally cheating, right? Well, like, at what point is it become emotionally cheating? Is it, if that conversation were to enter the realm of the sexual, then it, obviously is. But I mean, like, how would you even define emotional cheating? I guess.
I think it becomes emotional cheating when it becomes secret, when there's deceit involved. And there was a recent scandal of a prominent Christian pastor, and I'm not familiar with his name at the moment, but he got in trouble because he was Instagram messaging a female friend of his. And there was banter involved, there were jokes involved, and someone got a hold of these messages and tried to call him out and tried to create a scandal. And both spouses on the message recipient's end and then the pastor's end were both like, this is not a scandal. We both knew what was going on. We were aware that they were talking to each other. There was no problem. Cheating is defined between two spouses. And so long as you're sharing that information between the two of you and there's no deceit happening, it's not cheating, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a good definition because, like I said to Stephanie when we first started, dating, and then talking about getting married, I was like, just so if you ever want to read my DMs, they are open to you, but I never check hers because I trust her completely. We're just not the jealous type, but I can see that, yeah, when it starts to be something that you would hide from the other person, that's when like some kind of emotional cheating is going on. But I guess, in terms of like getting over it, it just seems to me, and I know that you're going to disagree with me on this. It just seems to me that if you want to repair a relationship, a marriage, then like sexually, it's just like it's whatever. Emotionally, it would seem like much harder to break the bonds and to recover from an emotional cheating than from a physical cheating. Do you think I'm wrong?
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think a lot of it also is about life stage. And I'm going to use I'm going to go back to Giselle and Tom Brady to use this as an example. Um, they're going through a divorce. Nobody really knows why. It's not clear. And I was just reading the reports. And again, maybe it's because of my season of life, but I'm looking at it. They've got two kids together. They're ages 9 and 12. There's another kid as the result of a relationship on his end, his ex. And Giselle is the stepmom of this third child. He said he was going to quit football and then he went back to football. Giselle's a hot girl. with twice the net worth of his. She's got staff, she's got everybody, but this is an example that money doesn't buy everything. I think she just wants her husband back. And I think Tom Brady is emotionally cheating with football. And I think she has been, there's this term that's thrown around parent circles a lot, and it's called default parenting. It's whoever is the default parent has the biggest burden of child rearing. So whoever the children call for in the middle of the night when they need someone, whoever makes the doctor's appointment, whoever clips the nails, whoever can't take a break, because without them, the children would not survive. That's exhausting. And so he's always doing football. And Gisele's like, I'm tired. I'm 45. I want my husband back. The kids are old, a little bit older. They're not little kids anymore. So she probably set an ultimatum. I read yesterday she even saged her car. She had like some spiritual healer come out. This girl's done. She's saging her car. She's done. She wants her husband back. If he's not going to be there, she's cutting ties.
Are you the default parent, Laura?
I am in the degrees that are biologically not changeable. So like breastfeeding until my husband can start lactating, that's on me. Until he can bear a child, though the media tells me he can. It hasn't worked yet. That's on me. But we basically run a 50-50 household, and it's awesome. I would highly recommend it.
If you're just texting or listening to the show, you can text in 573-319-1586. We're speaking to Laura Lington. Camellia Petersen over on the live stream says maybe part of this is also partners having the expectation that the other person, quote, completes them in some way. Not sure what you mean with that. You could maybe be a little bit more specific, Camellia. Chris Morrill on the live stream says, I'm thinking of a 4-letter word that was popular in MAGA world, rhymes with duck. Pretty sure we know what you're talking about. Tony Allegra agrees with you and says he agrees that cheating requires hiding. What do you think? Again, send us a text, 573-319-1586. In terms of like, the back on the earlier topic of, kind of like the policing of his masculinity in the sense that if he's crying with another woman, that would be something that you would, look down on. I mean, how do you get Jace, I guess, since we've already named him, how do you sort of like, do you have to like get him to open up to you emotionally, or does he do that naturally to you? Like, because it would seem to me that in order to avoid, emotional cheating down the line, it's probably incumbent on the woman to initiate a lot of those kinds of conversations or to kind of like draw it out. Do you feel like you have to draw it out of him or not?
In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. And I know that it's not a fun, satisfying answer. And our background has a lot to do with it. I grew up in a house where we did not talk about emotion. We did not talk about spiritual things. We did not talk about any of that. We weren't vulnerable. It's hard for me to be vulnerable in some rights. Like I will come to him at the end of the day and I'll just let it pile up and be like, I'm a mess. I can't sleep. I'm done. And he'll be there for me 100%. He's more of the like, doesn't keep it bottled up. He's a little bit more emotionally intelligent than I am and will, as things come, express them to me, and I'll be like, I get over it. But the point about marriage, the whole thing about marriage is that we're supposed to make each other better. So I better in ways, but in this particular way, he does make me better. And we are raising our boys to say, hey, it's okay to cry. If you need to cry, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, well, just be careful, because
just don't do it with another woman when you're married.
All right, that's Liberty Laura Lington. Great interview on this show. Laura, is there anything else that you think our listeners should know before I let you go?
Yeah, so I used to work in Congress. That's where you and I met. Austin was in D.C. So I used to work in the House of Representatives as a communications director. I've since quit that job, and now I run my own political newsletter that's an alternative to binging Fox News and CNN and Reddit for several hours a day. It's a political news aggregation service, email-based. You can sign up at billbrief.com, and you'll get a 7-day free trial, billbrief.com. I gather all the news for you, do all the research, summarize it for you, put in links, and it's all packaged with a pretty bow, and it's delivered to your email inbox 3 times a week.
Great stuff. Laura Lington, that was an awesome interview. Thank you very much for coming on the show today. We appreciate you very much.
Thanks, Austin. Appreciate our platonic relationship that we have going for us.
Me too. It's a very good platonic relationship.